Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it can be a challenging and ever-changing role because we've worked in the church too, which is why we built a community with over 25,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Katie Allred and Jahng, who want to help equip you to reach more of your congregation and community. This is the place where we'll talk shop with fellow practitioners and professionals. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Back to Church Communications. I am so excited to have Phil Cooke, author, influencer, just all around awesome guy. I'm really excited. He's got his book, Maximize Your Influence, and I'm really excited to be just chatting with him today about what he's doing. So thanks, Phil, for joining us.
Hey, I'm thrilled to be here. This is
out.
fun. I've been watching you from afar for a long time.
Oh my gosh.
Been doing some amazing things with the group on Facebook.
Oh,
and so
well, thank you.
I just thought, let's do it.
Yeah, well, it was really fun. I know you'd reached out to me and we passed ships of the night last time we got together. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I love the work that you do to help churches with their digital work.
Yep.
And it's so important. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with my first question.
All right.
So your work allows you to interact and hear from tons of church communicators.
Yep.
How has the role and responsibility of a church comm person shifted or changed over the past year from your point of view?
Because of the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, because of COVID.
Well, first of all, they were incredibly exhausted the first 3 months of the shutdown.
Right.
You know, most pastors were blindsided by this whole thing.
Right.
And I saw everything from pastors live streaming with an iPhone taped to a 2x4 to a full-on video, multiple cameras. And so it was the communication team and the media team that really did the work that made it lay. I mean,
they suddenly became invaluable, right?
Well, if nothing else, I think the COVID-19 virus taught pastors and church leaders the importance of communication and media.
Right.
A lot of them, I would have pastors tell me, well, Phil, I don't mind live streaming my service, but that's not
church.
Not real ministry.
Right.
And,
that would always drive me nuts.
They have changed their tune.
Guys.
They've totally changed their tune now. And it was church media people and communications people that made that happen. And so I know I've been telling pastors, look, give your guys a break. Let them rest. This last year has been incredibly tough on them. So I think it elevated them, number one, in the eyes of church leadership.
For sure.
It made pastors realize just how important they are. And but I think, too, it gave even church communication people a new perspective on how people would respond to live streaming. I don't think, even we worked with churches that have been live streaming for years and years and years, and some were extremely successful at it.
Yeah.
But even then, I think this opened up a lot of eyes to the power of how many people were willing to connect. I've had churches of 900 people call me and say, we're getting 30,000, 40,000 people a week watching our live stream.
Yeah.
And one pastor told me, he said, I'm embarrassed to say this because I'm a pastor, but I have no desire to go back to the building. We're ministering to more people now than
we've ever done.
Yeah.
It was just, first off, it's crazy, but also I totally believe it. It's not unbelievable. I mean, because I'm I wish you, I don't know if you know anything about my story, but back in, this is a little much, but back in 1999, I started a Harry Potter forum.
Interesting.
I was 9 years old. Back in 99. And I was a perfect millennial, I'm a 1989 Taylor Swift baby.
Okay.
Okay, so 99, I started this Harry Potter forum with some friends I met on the internet. I was every parent's worst nightmare.
Okay.
But through that Harry Potter forum, we grew to 10,000 members. We won an award from J.K. Rowling. So it wasn't
that's pretty cool.
Child's play.
Yes. Amazing.
But what's really crazy is that I shared the gospel intentionally and completely on accident with thousands of people.
That's great.
But I knew that I love Jesus and I love technology.
Yeah.
And I was somewhere we can make why can't we have this amazing community that I feel really connected to online. I was these people need the gospel, and there's nobody here besides me. I felt that I was
that's true. That's true.
Where are the Christians here to help, be kind and spread love, which I think is why, we make great online forum administrators.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and too, pastors will say, well, that online business is not real fellowship. They need to be in the building.
I know,
Let me tell you, anybody under 40 today fellowship is online. They get it. They don't have to be physically together to have a relationship anymore.
And to have a good relationship. Like, what's crazy? Okay, so my business partner, I was telling you about Kenny.
Sure.
So Kenny and I have met 9 times in person. And we've been in business for 3 years.
Wow.
And we've met 9 times in person.
Funny.
We hang out online, obviously 24/7. We're on Zoom and on phone calls. But like we're best friends. Like I don't think I have another closer friend. And so it's just funny because people think, online community can't happen. But I'm like, no, I've been a part of DJ Soto's movement of the VR church.
Yes.
I've been a part of some really interesting spaces where people are creating church and Facebook groups and that kind of stuff. I'm like, there is more to this than meets the eye. And so
that's absolutely true. You're right. I mean, and before the shutdown, when people started remote working, that was we didn't even think about it because we've been remote working for 10, 15 years. We've got a team member. I mean, we're in LA. We got a team member in Kansas City. Another one in Tulsa.
So you just kept doing what you were doing.
Yeah, we just kept doing what we're doing. So it was no big deal for us. So I think the church is just getting up to speed on where the culture's been for a while, which I think is good.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question. In your recent book, Maximizing Your Influence, you talk through how pastors and churches can use digital going forward. Where does the website exactly fit into a comprehensive... We have a website summit coming up, which is why I'm asking this question.
Let's talk about it, okay?
Where does the website fit into a comprehensive digital strategy today?
Let me tell you, social media, when that came along, it became so powerful and generated so much momentum, people forgot about their website.
Right.
Totally forgot about it. Let it go by.
I'll just use my Facebook page as my website.
Yeah, exactly.
Some churches are still doing that, right?
But what we discovered during live streaming during the shutdown was that you'll probably get more people watching your live stream on YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah.
But they will stay engaged longer and more seriously if they're on your website.
Right.
So one of our clients has been the YouVersion Bible app. I know the Life Church team really well. In fact, I interviewed their senior director of digital strategies just the other day. And they created that church online program that people can download for free. And so we started tracking it, and we discovered that the people that will come to your website, not only will they be exposed to all your other stuff that you're doing,
of course,
but they'll stay long. And I don't know fully why, but they will engage and stay longer. So I think there's a lot of reasons that your website should be kind of the hub for everything.
Okay, so is the website for the attendee or is it for the guest?
Oh, totally for the guest. 100% for the guest. I mean, trust me. Your church members know where the church is. They know who the pastor is. They know what time you're meeting. They know when the Christmas.
They probably know when the events are, right? They're getting all that.
They're getting all that. Nobody. Your church members never look at your website. So I have churches that they've completely rethought that, and they have 100% of their design has gone into. We want to be for somebody who's never darkened the door of our church ever.
Because they looked at their analytics and found. I mean, it was so funny. I actually asked our group like a couple years ago before COVID. I asked them. I said, "When you go and look at your analytics right now, your Google Analytics, and will you tell me how many people are new versus returning?" And I will tell you, it was the 80-20 rule. I mean, 80% were new, 20% were returning. And I said, what does that tell you? It tells you that new people are looking at your website every single day and they're not coming to church. Why? What on your website?
What are you not doing on that website?
Is your times and directions, are they hidden?
Yes.
Is your address not apparent? Is there a maze to figure out how your kids get involved? We've got to, and two, something that I've had a personal vendetta for many years about.
We're here for therapy. So
thank you. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. So Jesus, you can't find Jesus on a website, on a church website.
That's true.
Think about it. Go to a local church website today. Just find, we're in Dallas right now. We're the First Baptist, I don't know, they might be better. First Baptist, find a website, a First Baptist website. And just look and see if you can just find the words Jesus and who Jesus is and who he was and the plan of salvation. Tell me if you can find it. Because I'm telling you.
Because they're assuming everybody already knows.
They do, because you're coming to the church website. But here's the thing. Google prefers a local answer, right?
It's true.
So
absolutely true.
If you Google prayer, Google would prefer to send you
nearby.
They would prefer to send you to a local authority on prayer. However, Muslims, I'm telling you, when I search for prayer in my local area, I've only found the Muslim call to prayer. I don't find information about prayer. If I Google prayer in Mobile, Alabama, it's going to be about Muslim call to prayer. Like there is no local authority on it.
The Arab world, the Arab community gets media
A different way.
In a different way. They totally get it.
You're right.
And I'll say one thing about church websites too. That's my pet peeve. When the church shutdown happened, I started watching different churches live stream. Every Sunday I'd go on and I'd tap into 6, 8, 10 live streams just to see what different churches were doing. One of my most frustrating things was how hard it was to find the freaking live stream.
Right.
I mean, this is the most important thing you're doing right now. You can't meet. The live stream is everything.
Be first thing on your website, especially on a Sunday morning.
Oh, I had to click.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be more than like 2 clicks to get to the
Never.
live stream.
I mean, my thing is grease the skids. Whatever you want people to do.
However you can make it easier,
obvious.
Even if it's on the homepage, there are ways. There are so many tools now that will literally let you schedule a module to pop up at a certain time.
Sure.
There's so much stuff that I'm like, why are we not using this, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's ways to do it. The church just hasn't caught up.
Don't make it hard for people.
Right.
And the other thing too is that we've got to have a mindset now of it's not how we want to reach them, it's how they want to reach us.
Exactly.
Which means we got to get on the platforms they're on. We got to be there when they want to be on there. So many times churches think, well, this is what we're going to do. Forget that.
Yeah.
It's what they want to do.
Exactly.
And we need to be
Jesus told us to go into the world, not let the world come to us.
That's right.
Like, all right, well, we built our building. Surely they'll come to us eventually, right? Like,
a few maybe will stumble in.
Yes.
That's
to our amazing events and programs.
True. Yeah. Oh man.
Which don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, there's a place for that. There is. I think I've been to many and attended many event-driven churches, but at the same time, like the church at this point in time, is uniquely positioned to provide community.
Absolutely.
In such a just an amazing way.
Yeah.
That if they could figure it out, if they could crack the code of creating online community and driving those things to real community, I just think the opportunities are
I'm an LA guy, so I go to Laker games. And so whether I'm in the stadium or whether I'm watching it on TV, I want a very similar experience.
Yeah.
And so we need to think of that hybrid experience at church, whether they're watching online, whether they show up live in the church sanctuary, wherever.
Right.
We need to figure out how do we make any experience someone has with our church almost identical. We can't make it totally identical, obviously.
Right.
But how do we make it so that they immediately know who this church is, what it's about, what the experience is like? That hybrid concept, I would love to get across to more and more churches.
Yeah. And that church is not just a live stream. Like the online church is not just a live stream. You've got to figure out how to create more many-to-many connections. It's not one-to-many or even one-to-one.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them think they're preaching, if they're doing a live stream, then they're preaching to their congregation in their houses. But how can you start? Church is a community.
It is.
Yes, we come to be taught, but at the same time, I really come to church for the fellowship afterwards.
Yeah.
But how can we create that in the next space is, I think, the next question we've got to answer.
We've got to answer that. That's a great point. Well, it's funny that you mentioned my book. The reason I wrote it is because as the church shutdown really started, I started to realize pastors, they don't teach pastors this in seminary. They don't have communications and media classes in seminary. Yeah. What are they going to do? And particularly as we emerge, as we come out, what are we going to do differently?
Right.
And so I wrote it really to be a reference book for pastors and ministry leaders to understand, okay, how do we deal with this? How do we engage this digital generation? In my book, the way you preach to a digital generation is different. The way you do everything, it's changed everything. And so I just think we have to understand how to think that way. Right. Design, what we call design thinking was so popular for a while.
Yes.
It's almost the same when it comes to digital thinking. How do we engage with people in the digital realm? It's a different world.
It's a totally different space and you can create culture there too. I think that's where people think, I just put it out there into the void. And we hope that it works or whatever.
Well, if I put a scripture out there with a picture of my pastor
of a bald eagle, what I'm talking
that works
about?
too.
That's exactly. I always think of we will fly on the wings like eagles, and it's just like a picture of an eagle. And you're like, that's not it.
I tell people, if I see one more scripture of today's the day the Lord hath made, let us rejoice and be glad.
Right.
I'll blow my brains out.
Or do not worry, don't have anxiety.
Look, I like scripture.
I do
I'm
too.
all for it. However, that's not how you necessarily engage with people.
Do it better.
Yeah, do it better.
Like,
do it better.
Just a little bit hard, like just a little bit more work. You would like do so much better. Like you would get what you're looking for, the engagement that you're looking for. If you would just explain scripture, if you would take a minute and do a selfie video,
there you go.
Right? Like explaining the scripture and what it means to you, I guarantee you that will perform.
No, man.
But people that don't want to do
You get me right. You get me worked up here. This
it's
is
good.
important stuff.
I'm here to
drives me nuts.
Okay, so I believe the sales of your book support your ministry.
Yeah.
Influence
Oh
Lab.
yeah. Well, yeah. We have. It's funny because we had because I make our company Cooke Media Group is a for-profit company. We don't make one, but it's a for-profit company.
Right.
But we've worked for years and years. But
Sure.
we started getting so many requests from Christians internationally about how to use social media.
Yeah.
For instance, a couple of years ago, we got a call from a major church in Cairo, Egypt, who said, "Could you send a screenwriter, an acting teacher, a social media instructor?" And producer, a filmmaker over here for a week to teach our team because they're producing 80 hours a month of Christian programming that beams into the Muslim world.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we got so many requests and we were paying for it out of our pocket and trying to make it work. So we launched a nonprofit called the Influence Lab. And the book, you can go to influencematters.com and you can order a copy of the book for a donation to the Influence Lab because Christians, I'll tell you this is important, Katie. Christians overseas get it. They get media. They really do.
Yeah, I was just telling your wife that I did some work in India in January 2020.
Okay.
I was working with a ministry in India that was launching a podcast, the first podcast in these 2 Indian languages. Wow. And by July, they launched this podcast in May. By July, they had already had 300 conversions. Like, I mean, like 300, awesome. They had like over 1,000 conversations.
Wow.
Because of this podcast, but 300 people came to Christ.
That's
like,
unbelievable.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and they get it though. They get it in a very unique way.
Yeah.
Like the digital strategy part of it too, and like they want to use it.
They do, and we've worked. I mean, we've filmed in probably 70 countries around the world, and I have yet to go to a place where people don't have a cell phone.
Right.
Everybody's got them.
You are like in the middle of India, and you are not expecting, and you got the best cell service you've ever seen.
A Maasai warrior in the heart of the African bush. Actually, I saw a statistic the other day that said a Maasai warrior in the heart of the African bush with a cell phone, and they all have them because I filmed them. They have access to more information today than the President of the United States did just 25 years ago.
Which is why.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And the fact that, like, day by day, every single day, the more the internet goes forward, right, and it's more accepted, it's the more that we can get the gospel out.
Totally.
Like, I think it can go hand in hand. Like, we should, like, rejoice when the internet gets to a foreign land. That means, like, we can get to a foreign land that we probably couldn't have gotten into before.
I had a meeting this morning with a guy that produces content for Iran.
Right.
And he said, I can't hold a crusade over there. We can't go to a church over there. We can't have an open air meeting.
Yeah.
But I got the media and I can get in. And he said, I can get the gospel in there. So overseas, Christians really get it, I think.
Yeah.
And also they take it more seriously because they know the stakes are high.
Yeah.
And sometimes over
totally
here,
different. Yeah.
we don't take it very seriously.
Right.
So at least the potential. I think that's a good point. How are we doing?
We're doing great. Are you?
Right.
How are you doing?
No, I'm having a great time. This is fun.
In our church communications Facebook group, we have over 29,000 leaders, which is crazy.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You've done a brilliant job with that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's wild. Like, if you had told me, like, I thought I was going to find 50 people who just wanted to complain about making a bulletin every week, which is, I would have been into that, but to find nearly 30,000 people,
unbelievable,
which will probably, we'll definitely go over 30,000 by the end of the year. Like, it's just wild.
And these are all different sized churches.
Right, and they're all over, it's all the kind of different denominations. It's not just one denomination.
Great.
And they all support each other.
That's awesome.
It is wild.
I love that.
I don't know, and so that's why I know you can create culture online, and you can create good, healthy, supportive culture, because I'm like, we've seen it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if we can do this, like, surely churches can do it too, right?
Totally.
Okay, so what would you like to say to them and to our podcast audience about what they should be focusing on next? So should they be paying attention to VR, audio, TikTok, text?
Okay, that's a great question. My thought about this is, when it comes to, there are certain things that are fun to do because they're creative.
Right.
I had a church talk to me about holograms the other day.
Yeah.
And they're doing a conference, and one of the speakers can't be there. They got to do his hologram. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
However, I would say that there are things that you do for fun, and there are things that are just going to have a more effective reach and make an impact. And so I really encourage people. I worked with a church one time that they were just all about creative, and they didn't really care if it worked or not. They just want to be wildly creative and have fun.
Right.
And I just kept trying to say, guys, let's try to focus this a little bit and hit the target.
Right.
And they just didn't want to have anything to do with it. So it really taught me that, and I'm the creative guy, and I teach on leading creative people. But there's a time when you need to figure out, is it working or not working? You have to really analyze it and look at it from that perspective. But the thing I think I would tell communication directors and leaders in churches, it's funny that when I started, churches didn't do it at all. There was no such thing. I'm an old guy, and when I started, it was ministry organizations, Billy Graham, Oral Roberts, classic old ministries that did, because they could afford it.
Yeah.
Churches couldn't.
Right.
But as equipment, my first video camera for television was $250,000.
Oh, wow.
And that was a little remote camera. And so as prices have come down, every church in America now has a TV studio.
You know, I remember buying my first camcorder back in 2009, and it was $2,000, which was a lot.
It's true.
It was a lot for a college kid.
It's a lot.
And so today, the camera I'm shooting on now is like $700.
Wow.
And
let me say, there are 2 film festivals in America right now for feature films shot on iPhone.
Yeah, which is wild, right? Like you can do. I mean, honestly, this 12 is probably better quality.
90% of the reason I bought my 12 was for the camera.
I know.
Not for the phone,
not for any other thing. The camera is fantastic.
Totally. So I would say this. I would explore anything that. Let me give you an example of something we've done, because we work with churches all the time.
Yeah.
And we have 3 churches that we work with that during the pandemic, they went on local television.
Oh, wow.
And we really helped them tweak the live stream, and it was really being effective. And they said, you know what? Why don't we show this to the entire community? Let's show more people. And so they started they booked time on local television, and the focus of the program is really to drive people to the church.
Right.
Because, a church member is they're going to go deeper spiritually, they're going to give, they're going to be involved.
Right.
But we discovered that it's been super successful. Churches have really grown because local people got to see what it's like.
Right.
And so even, churches think, broadcast TV, that's for TV evangelists and those guys. Let me tell you, I just really believe that local television can really be an asset for driving people to church and making it known what you're doing. So that's an important thing. But the other thing is just always be looking. It's not about necessarily what's next. I mean, if I knew what was next, I'd be a billionaire, and I wouldn't be wasting my time talking to you.
Sure, yeah.
But it's positioning yourself for what's next.
Sure.
Always be paying attention, what's going on, seeing what's out there. I don't think right now we're going to, holograms are going to win the love for Jesus. But I want to check them out.
But
I want to know what's going on.
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. That would be great.
Know.
I can't wait for a hologram to pop up.
And the other thing I would say, and I'll shut up, is learn to get on the pastor's wavelength.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, most pastors, most communication directors come to me and say, Pastor doesn't get it. He won't spend time with me. We never go to lunch. He never confides in me.
But having him on your team or her on your team, is so important.
And it's mostly the disconnect usually happens because the communication or media person is talking their language, not his language. Pastor doesn't care about how many lumens or what the light level is on the stage.
Yep.
They don't care about that stuff.
Right.
If you can talk in terms of how do we reach people, how do we connect with people, suddenly it'll get his attention.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree.
Suddenly he's on your team. He's the biggest advocate you've got.
Right.
So I think that learning to speak the language of the pastor will change everything.
Yeah.
It really makes a big difference for communication, media people at the local church level. It really does matter.
How do you see the role? I know that we already said we can't predict the future.
No.
How do you see the role of church comm, the church communicator, in their job shifting in the next 5 years?
Let me be encouraging and say that the most effective churches that we work with right now, the communication director is the second most influential person in the church.
Yeah.
Pastor being number 1.
Right.
He refers to the communication director more than anybody else.
Right.
The executive pastor, other teaching pastors, because that communication person
Right.
is the voice, the mouthpiece.
They need a seat at the table.
Oh, they do.
And if they didn't get one during COVID, I don't know
what will get you there. I don't know.
What will get you there?
Because here, the pastor deals with people within the 4 walls of the church.
Right.
Communication director gets
Everywhere
that message
else.
to potentially hundreds of
How
thousands
can we
or
get
millions.
that to more? Yes.
Absolutely. I had one pastor call me and he said, we have about 800 church members, but during this shutdown, my Easter message was seen by 1.5 million people. And he said, my communication team. That's my communication team. So trust me, he values them.
Yeah.
And so I think when you could show results to a pastor and really help him understand how far it goes, or help her understand, particularly in a nonprofit or a ministry situation, whoever your leader is, really embrace them and show them that communication and media is their chance to reach literally the world.
Right.
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
I work in Hollywood with influencers. There are people there that produce 5-minute weekly programs on YouTube, and they have 70 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And they're producing this show in the church, in their parents' basement or in a spare bedroom.
Right.
So if it's really about the story, the content, the message of what you're trying to do, if that could be engaging, who knows how
And you can clarify it, right? Like if you can tell it clearly,
yes,
and succinctly, I think that's when people listen.
And the thing is, and I'll shut up, but the thing is, what happens in the pulpit, on the stage, in a church, is not necessarily what will work the best online.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. It's not.
You need to adapt to the platform.
Right? Yeah, YouTube. You need to watch YouTubers. Like
Yes.
if you want to really reach some people, you can do it on YouTube. But it's not going to be by labeling your sermon July 6th, 2021. Romans 16. Like that's not going to reach anybody.
No.
I hate to tell you.
Weirdly enough, in the 60s, Canadian professor and theorist Marshall McLuhan said, "The medium is the message," which you've heard.
Right. Yeah.
Which means if you do it on broadcast TV, it's going to come across differently than if you do it in a live stream.
And so
you
have to adapt it, right?
Adapt, yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
You have to adapt it, man.
Attaching a camera to the balcony rail is not a live stream.
Right.
It'll maybe capture the service,
right,
but it's not going to be nearly as effective as if you get up there and do it for that audience.
Right.
In fact, I've had churches, even before the shutdown, churches that we worked with, I'd encourage them, while they're doing praise and worship, the pastor would go up to a camera and introduce himself, welcome people, invite your friends. We're thrilled that you're here.
Right.
He would talk to the camera during his message. We would just do, even before the shutdown, when people were in the building, we would do things that made the audience at home feel like they were really connected. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up, is I really don't think this is the time, even though we're getting back into normal, this is not the time to let off the gas on the live stream.
Right.
We need to keep going harder than ever, because I think I'm seeing a significant number of church members are probably going to cut back 1 or 2 Sundays a month. They'll show up at the building 2 or 3 times a month, but they're going to stay home once or twice.
Well, Barna, I think research showed that even the most engaged church members only came once a month.
That's sad.
It was
but it's true.
Before COVID.
Yeah.
I was like, this was already where we were going. We reached the height of Christianity in 2006 or something like that, and then it just started going down.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons.
Well, I wrote a book a few years ago called The Way Back: How Christians Blew Their Credibility and How We Get It Back.
Yeah.
And we wrote it thinking the reason we're being marginalized in the culture is a branding problem. We're not telling our story.
Right.
But the more we got into it, and we went to Barna, Pew, Gallup, Lifeway research,
Mormons really figured that one out.
They did.
We can talk about that.
And we discovered that we don't have a branding problem. We have a Salesforce problem. Mm-hmm. Christians don't believe in the product.
Right.
They're not out there living the life they're called to live.
Right.
They're not being the people we're called to be.
Yeah.
And so until we can do that, I just don't think we're going to make much of an impact on the culture.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There it is.
We're just here
to convict you on this depressing note.
Get with it.
How do people connect with you, Phil, if they want to connect with you?
PhilCooke.com. I'm Cook with an E, Cooke. PhilCooke.com is my kind of home base for everything. And my blog. And I write about the intersection of faith, media, and culture. So the things that people are wrestling with in communication issues in church and ministries.
Yes.
I'm writing about that all the time. So I'm also writing a lot recently, Katie, about leading creative teams. I think if I could teach anything to communication, media leaders, is leading creative people is a real art.
You want to go on the road?
We should.
I mean, we got stuff. We got people.
Oh, there's an art form.
We got to get to them.
There's a lot of resources on leadership, but there's very little on
creative leadership in church or in the religious. There's so much that needs to be said there that isn't happening. And the church used to be the #1 place for creativity, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It used to be we've seen the chapels and the and somewhere we just were let's paint everything beige. That'll be good.
Oh yeah, totally. And
church beige. I feel like that has to be a Sherwin-Williams color. Church beige.
A couple years ago, IBM did a massive survey of CEOs all over the country.
Yeah.
And they said, what is the one trait that leaders need for the future? And they said creativity.
Yeah.
If we're going to make a difference out there, it's going to be through creativity. And so That's what we want to get out. We want to let people know that leading creative people, inspiring them, motivating them, that will change the world.
Right. Not church of age.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us
Hey,
today,
this has been
Phil.
fun. You've been great.
I appreciate it.
It's been terrific.
And again, just thank y'all for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again at churchcommunications.com.
Thanks for listening to the Church Communications Podcast with Katie Allred and Kenny Jahng. If you liked our show today and want to learn more, you can join our Facebook group with over 25,000 church leaders. Simply search for Church Communications on Facebook. And if you liked today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to become better communicators for the church. And finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.